ever stop to think about how that gadget in your pocket or that app on your phone actually came to be? From just a tiny spark of an idea to a real physical thing? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on exactly that. We're breaking down the core functions that make a business tick.
Right? It really can feel like magic. One minute someone has a thought, and the next it's sitting on a store shelf. But it's not magic at all. It's this incredibly coordinated dance between different teams, and we're going to follow that journey from the very beginning to the very end.
So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the 5 big functions you'll find in most companies. Then we'll dive into each one: operations, marketing, finance, and then the really important pair, HR and strategy. And to make it all click, we'll see how they have to work together perfectly to get a brand new product out the door.
Okay, so at the core of just about any company, you're going to find these 5 key departments. Now, to make this real, we're going to follow the launch of a totally hypothetical new product. We'll call it the Aura Smart Lamp. This little lamp is going to be our guide to see how each and every department plays its part. First up, operations. These are the builders, the doers, the makers. If you can physically touch a product, you have the operations team to thank. They're the ones who take a blueprint and turn it into an actual physical thing.
So, the bottom line is this. Operations manages the entire process of actually making the thing. They are completely obsessed with efficiency, with quality, and with reliability. They're the ones who make sure that the promises marketing is about to make to customers can actually be kept.
For our Aura lamp, you can see how this works. First, operations has to go out and source all the parts, the LEDs, the plastic housing, the smart chips. Then they fire up the assembly line. After that comes a super important step, quality control, where they test every single lamp to make sure it works. And finally, they handle all the logistics, getting the finished lamps out of the factory and into warehouses.
Okay, so you built an amazing product. But that's only half the story, right? How does anybody find out it even exists? Well, that's where marketing steps in.
You can think of marketing as the bridge. They're the voice of the customer inside the company, telling everyone what people want. And they're the voice of the company to the customer, telling the world why they should want this product. It's their job to create that buzz and connect the product with just the right people.
And for the Aura launch, marketing is juggling a ton. They're doing research to figure out the perfect price. They're designing the box it comes in and the logo. They're creating all those social media ads you'd see. They're even planning a big launch event and sending early units to tech influencers to get those reviews going.
Yeah, none of this happens for free. Building things, buying parts, running huge ad campaigns, all of that costs some serious money. Which brings us to the department that controls the wallet, finance.
The finance team, well, they're basically the guardians of the company's financial health. They keep track of every single dollar that comes in and every dollar that goes out. Their job is to make sure the company is healthy, profitable, and has the cash it needs to keep growing.
So, to make the Aura lamp happen, the finance department greenlights a $1.5 million budget. And that number isn't just pulled out of thin air. They work with every single other department to make sure there's enough money for materials, for marketing, for new hires, all without risking the company's bottom line.
All right, and finally, we've got 2 functions that operate at a really high level, kind of guiding the whole ship. You've got strategy, which sets the destination, and human resources, or HR, which makes sure you have the right crew to get you there.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly. Strategy is all about the what. They're the ones who decided, hey, we should get into the smart home market. And then HR answers the who. They figure out, okay, who are the talented people we need to hire to actually make this happen?
So yeah, the strategy team has the telescopes, not the microscopes. They're looking 3, 5, even 10 years into the future. They're analyzing trends and making those really big calls that will shape where the company is headed.
HR, on the other hand, is focused on what is easily the most important asset any company has, its people. They find the talent, they hire them, they help them grow, and they really are the architects of the company's entire culture.
For our Aura lamp, you can see just how hands-on HR is. They've got to go out and recruit software engineers with really specific skills. Then they have to build training programs so the sales team knows how to sell this new thing. They make sure the whole team works well together, and of course, they handle all the nuts and bolts, like payroll and benefits.
So we've met all the individual players, but here's the real secret sauce. A successful launch isn't about what any one of them does alone. It's about how they all play together.
This timeline really maps out that teamwork beautifully. Look at this. In the first quarter, strategy gets the project approved, and HR immediately starts hiring. Then in Q2, finance locks down that big budget. By Q3, operations is in full swing, actually building the lamps.
And it all leads to Q4, when marketing unleashes its huge campaign to the world. It's like a relay race, and every single handoff has to be perfect. And that right there, that's the main takeaway. A company isn't just a bunch of separate departments in a building. It's a living, breathing system. The constant communication and teamwork between operations, marketing, finance, HR, and strategy, that is what decides if a cool idea just stays an idea or if it becomes a runaway success.
So that leaves us with one last thing to chew on. As AI starts to handle more and more of the routine stuff in operations, finance, maybe even marketing, which of these core human functions do you think becomes the most important for a company to win? Is it the big picture strategic thinking, the creativity, the ability to build an amazing team? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.